Classic cocktails, however simple they may seem in theory, are constantly debated among bartenders. That's because as bartenders, we want to make the best cocktails for our guests. And we are a giant bunch of nerds. But there are very few cocktails talked about more than the Martini and Manhattan. So let's look at a couple of ways you can personalize it to make a better drink for yourself at home. The template for these two iconic cocktails is fairly simple. The base spirit, rye for a Manhattan and gin for a Martini, brings the flavor. Then, a complementary vermouth builds on that flavor, adding acidity and sweetness to soften out the rougher edges of the alcohol. Finally, a dash or two of bitters tie it all together. Stir all of these ingredients over ice and serve up. Remove all of the dogmatic arguments surrounding these cocktails, and what could be more simple? Cocktails generally have a complicated history, and not just because we lose our ability to recall hard facts the more we drink. So, it shouldn't be much of a surprise when I say there are a couple of stories behind these two iconic cocktails. The Manhattan may have been invented at a party in the 1870s, thrown by Winston Churchill's mother. But another story has a mysterious Mr. Black creating the drink sometime in the 1860s. The Martini's origins is usually centered around a gold miner in the 1860s at a bar in Martinez, California. But another story does take place in the Knickerbocker Hotel in New York City. Since I'm not giving a history test, I'm going to keep this pretty simple. The Manhattan came first, the Martini came shortly after. For the sake of simplicity, and because of my own personal preferences, the standard recipe we will work from will be 2 ounces of spirit, 1 ounce of vermouth, and 2 dashes of bitters for both of them. This gives us a good standard to riff from. And since I can't hear you screaming at me through the computer, I'm gonna believe that you're okay with this recipe. Real success comes from picking a whiskey or gin that you really like. This is only slightly more important when picking a gin because the flavors in a martini are a little more delicate. So find a modest gin, one that won't throw your cocktail out of balance and has flavors that you enjoy.
Please don't turn your nose up to a vodka martini. However, if that is the only way you drink your martini, might I suggest a compromise and give a Vesper a try. It splits the gin base with vodka and was cool enough for James Bond to drink. More importantly though, it really gets under Souther Teague's craw for some reason.
The bold flavors in a Manhattan make picking a rye a little more forgiving. But try to pick one that you don't mind sipping neat. Of course, you can make your Manhattan with bourbon, if you like. But why not try a Rob Roy and use a nice scotch as the base instead? When picking a vermouth, stick with something simple. Dolan, for instance, makes a sweet and dry version that comes in bottles small enough to fit in your refrigerator and get through in a reasonable amount of time. I'll do a deeper dive on vermouth another time, But for the sake of this template, it's more important that the vermouth be delicious and kept fresh and cold. Try adjusting the amount of vermouth and spirit while keeping the same 3-ounce volume of our standard recipe. Lower the amount of dry vermouth to 1/4 ounce for a dry martini, or raise it to 1.5 ounces for a 50-50 martini. Or try a reverse Manhattan and boost the sweet vermouth to 2 ounces for a lower proof version on the original. Classic Angostura bitters complements rye and sweet vermouth better than anything. So do not forget to add this to your Manhattan. It's a little more complicated for the martini though. I do love 2 dashes of orange bitters when I make mine, but I also like a lemon twist. The touch of bitter citrus and aromatic citrus complement the cocktail better than I can describe. I don't know, can you? Sounds good to me. If I'm opting for onions or olives in my martini, I might leave the bitters out. Garnish all comes down to personal preferences. A brandied cherry is traditional for a Manhattan, but an orange twist is not unusual. A lemon twist or olive is common in a martini, but if you have never had a Gibson, which is just a martini made with a cocktail onion, give that a try. Or, if no one is looking, add them all. I won't tell. Now, putting everything that we've talked about to use, let's meet in the middle and make what's called a perfect Manhattan. Start by adding 2 dashes of Angostura bitters. Next, add 1/2 ounce of sweet vermouth and 1/2 ounce of dry vermouth. Then top it all off with 2 ounces of your preferred rye, then give this all a stir over some ice. Once it's cold and diluted enough, strain it into your glass and garnish it with a lemon twist. Whoa! That's the genius of these classic cocktails. There is no one way to make them, and a perfect version of them kind of blends the two together. There is only one right way to make these cocktails, and that's your way. Have fun experimenting with them, and let me know what you end up making.